Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. We are in a particularly strange situation here in Warzone right now, where within this current meta, every single weapon in a specific category is competitive or better. What we're talking about is the LMG meta, which ever since the health update and the TTK update with season 4 has become increasingly dominant. Basically, because every single LMG can be built to be very similar to like an LMG rifle hybrid, they've got strong TTKs, great range, for the most part really good control, and they can be built to be very aggressive as well. So when it comes to using a primary, they thrive. And originally I was gonna do just the top 5 best LMGs, but then I'm sitting there like, wait a second, there's only 6 LMGs. I don't want to just leave one off. We might as well do that, right? So technically, going in order of the top 6 best LMGs in Warzone right now, we're starting first with the RPK, and just because this is number 6 out of 6 does not mean that it's a bad LMG. Like I just said, this is still one of the more competitive options in the current meta right now. Low recoil, easy to use, and by now we're all familiar with this thing because it was the go-to meta for the first 2 months of the game, right? Setup here mainly focusing on that long range efficiency. Initially, I got the AIM-OUT V4. As always, when it comes to your optic, use the one you are the most comfortable with. Just go through and tune for that furthest eye position and slightly faster ADS. Now, I go for the X2 rear grip demo X2, just straight up basic control, gonna help out make the weapon a little bit easier to use there. We tune for better control and steadiness there. High velocity ammo, you don't really need an extended mag. 75 works fine with this fire rate, so high velocity it is. And of course, as always, we're tuning for the better velocity and damage range. Ripper underbarrel for that more consistent stabilization, just gonna make the weapon feel a lot easier and a lot more consistent, especially over long range when you have those smaller targets. Better stabilization and stability on those tunes. Then the Talon 5 suppressor here, gonna offer that better velocity and range, which is clutch as is. And because it does have that slightly slower ADS, it's going to end up giving you a little bit of extra better control as well. So again, just increasing that mid to long range efficiency. And this thing is efficient when it comes to the mid to long range. Absolutely phenomenal choice, even if it technically is the worst LMG, which is not a bad title to hold right now. Now, at number 5, I've got the Icarus. This is still a ridiculous option for being number 5 on a list, though. Its mid-range TTK is especially good. Even over range, it's still very competitive with some of the best weapons in the game right now. You do have to get a little bit used to how this weapon behaves. It's kind of awkward because its recoil is a little sporadic, and the fire rate does mean you have to reload a decent amount for it being an LMG. But after you get used to it, after you master how to engage with this weapon, you are set. This thing is going to fry. We've covered it in a standalone video recently, and I was very impressed when looking at the actual data of this thing. Again, here we got the AIM-OUT V4, same deal as always with that. In this case, I go for high velocity ammo yet again for that better velocity and damage range. Ripper underbarrel as well, same deal as over on the RPK with the better stabilization and stability. Echoless 80 suppressor in this case, because we do have an added barrel here. I don't feel like we need to slow down the ADS even more with a heavier suppressor. In my opinion, Echoless was totally sufficient even with the lack of control benefits here. That said, if you really want that extra control, you could always upgrade to a heavier suppressor in this case. Totally, go with what you're going to be the most accurate with. Then, as mentioned lastly, I got the Cold Forge barrel, which offers that better range and better velocity here. No added control, which is a bit unfortunate. It's just a 2-for-1 combo, missing that 3-for-1 combo, but it's still a solid option. And of course, we're tuning for the better steadiness and range there as well. Slept on weapon. Absolutely slept on. You don't see this weapon used enough, but those who do use it know that it's a beast. Then at number 4, I've got one of my favorite weapons in the game. It's the Sakin. This thing is about as easy as it gets. One of, if not the single easiest weapon to use in the game. There's a few other competitors actually on this list, to be honest, but it is so straightforward. This thing is a laser beam, and its TTK is actually very impressive as well. Its damage is honestly kind of mediocre by comparison to some of the other options in this category, but because it's so laser accurate, your realistic TTK is one of the best in the game. Yet again, we've got the AIM-OUT V4 as always there. I go for the Stip 40 rear grip, but you can definitely change how you want to, use this depending on your level of comfortability with the gun. Stip 40 is going to focus straight up on better recoil control. Very straightforward, right? I also use the Edge 47 here. It's easy enough that I don't feel like you need to use Ripper. If you wanted to upgrade to the heavier option though, feel free to do so. But again, just helping out with that stabilization. Now, if you are super comfortable with how this weapon behaves, you could drop one of the Edge 47 and the Stip 40. I'd probably recommend the Stip 40 there. Drop that and then throw on high velocity if you want. That way you can have that better consistent feel over the mid to long range. That's a preference there, but it's one that is definitely worth noting. Or On the contrary, we have the Silver Series barrel here. This helps out with velocity, range, and control. The 3-in-1 combo returns, right? Better range and steadiness here. If you don't feel like you need all of that necessarily, you could drop this for, you know, high velocity ammo, or use high velocity in both the rear grip and the under barrel and no barrel. You could definitely, you know, adjust as needed here. There's a lot of various builds that are all going to work well. Lastly, I do have the Polar Fire S suppressor though. Better velocity, better range, no added control here, but again, not really needed just because this weapon is so easy and so straightforward to use. You land your shots, it's going to be a beast, and it just so happens it's super easy to land your shots. By the way, as we are making our way through the list today, if you are new to the channel, you like what you see, you want to stay up to date with all things going on in COD, be sure to hit that subscribe button, join us on the road to 1 million subs, and if you enjoyed the video, if you find it helpful at all, let me know by dropping a like on it as well, would be seriously appreciated. Now at number 3, I've got the HCR. This is one that took a massive leap with the Season 4 update. It was a mediocre rifle before the health update, now one of the best, or LMG / rifle, right? This thing is phenomenal. This and the Sakin are by far the easiest to use in class. This is what probably gives the Sakin the most run for its money in terms of being the easiest weapon to use in the game. It's a laser beam. It also has phenomenal damage, and it's pretty aggressive for being an LMG as well. It doesn't feel nearly as heavy as some of the other options here on this list. You'll never guess this, but I am in fact using the AMOP V4 yet again. I've also got the Stip 40 rear grip here too for that better control, tuning for the better ADS in this case, just because it's so easy to use. You don't always need that extra steadiness, but you could go either way there if you wanted to. I also keep the standard magazine of 60. I feel like that works fine. If you wanted to jump up to 100, I mean, you could, but I don't feel like that's super necessary. 60 is totally sufficient. So instead, going for high velocity yet again, same deal as always there with the tunes. Ripper under barrel yet again as well. Then I go for the Harbinger suppressor in this case. We're not using a barrel, so getting some extra control out of this is a pretty nice bonus on top of the better velocity and the better range as well. You guys have seen this build though. We talked about this in a separate video as well, breaking down the stats and everything, and it clearly holds its own in this current meta with ease. Now coming in at number 2, I've got the RAPP, and we just recently talked about this thing, and boy oh boy does it just shred. This thing is nuts. It is kind of obnoxious to use as an LMG because it's got an insane fire rate, and in turn the TTK is just insane. It's bonkers, right? But you have to reload so much, and with that it's a lot of stopping, waiting, reloading. Okay, now I can get back into the fight. It's a lot of timeouts, right? So that's like sort of the obnoxious part of this, but straight up, if you learn to use this weapon, and it's honestly pretty easy in terms of control, you learn to use it, land your shots, you're gonna be feeling good in game. Yet again, AMOP V4. I've got the TCG-10 rear grip here in this case. This is essentially the equivalent of the other rear grips, right? Just straight up better control. I do go for the 100-round mag in this case over high velocity. I would love to use high velocity, but in this case, I feel like having Ripper and TCG-10 is kind of necessary just to make the weapon feel super reliable and super consistent. So unfortunately, no high velo in this class. If you're super comfortable with how it behaves, though, you could definitely try it out. But anyways, with 100 rounds, you're just reloading less. That's pretty essential with a build like this and with a reload as slow as this, right? Ripper, as mentioned, same deal as always. Then the Talon suppressor for the better velocity, better range, slightly better control on there as well, because this is one of the heavier suppressors. I love the feel of this thing. It's been my go-to weapon here for the past couple of days, and it's been just completely dominating. And then lastly, at number 1, we've got the RAAL. This is the choice that I see pretty much all the pros and top 250 players dropping in with right now. If they're using an LMG, it's the RAAL. This thing is just the powerhouse of Warzone, right? It's been the GOAT in damage since day one. It's still the GOAT in damage right now. If you learn the control, you're good to go. That's by far the biggest entry barrier or skill gap here. It's got some pretty obnoxious recoil to it, so we build it out to basically try and counter that as best we can, and then we go on and we fry, right? AMOP V4 yet again. We've also got the Stip 40 rear grip, surprise, surprise, for that better recoil control. Again, no high velocity ammo here, unfortunately, just because Stip 40 is control. Dune under barrel is also meant for control. It's better steadiness and better stability. That's a really clutch attachment there. Also, the Rhino barrel is going to help out with control, and I feel like all those are so essential because even with all of those, this setup still has a decent amount of recoil to it. Now, that said, I am using one of the lighter suppressors, so nil sound's not going to really offer any extra control benefits. We got the better velocity and ADS on the tunes there. I can't stand how slow this ADS is as is, but technically if you wanted to upgrade to Dreadnought or Reaper or Talon 16 to get some added control benefits there, you could. You're just going to be ADSing in 5 to 7 business days, and that could cost you in some gunfights, but as is, this setup is low recoil for what the RAAL is, and it hits just as hard, which means you're going to be melting players left and right all game, every game. And that being said, that is going to wrap things up for this one. If you enjoyed the video, let me know by dropping a like on it. And if you're new here, be sure to hit that sub button and turn on those post notifications. That way you can always guarantee you're up to date with MW2, Warzone, and DMZ alike. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.